Now to forecast what we can expect over the next 7 days, here's UNL Extension statewide climatologist Al Dutcher.
Well, folks, here we are again on Friday morning. During this last week, we've seen a couple systems move through. The primary system that caused most of the major precipitation was in the Monday time frame, where we've seen a broad area of 1 to 2 inch snowfall across most of the southern part of the state. And as we got to the northeastern part of the state, we've seen snowfall totals getting up into the 4-inch range. So it was very welcome moisture, but we're going to need to see a lot more of this before the spring is over to alleviate some of the significant deficits that have been accumulated in the northeastern part of the state and give us some, at least a hope that as we move into the planting season, we'll have some surface moisture to work with, in the hopes that continuation of rain chances will at least alleviate these drought concerns as we go into the spring. Now, as we move through this next 7-day period, last week we talked about the chance for a significant storm, particularly as we got into the early part of March. That has disappeared from the models in the recent 24 hours, but it's been popping in back and forth. So even though this storm system is out of the woods right now, remember that prior to this big snowstorm at the beginning of the month of February, we've seen the same thing happen. So as we get into the early part of next week, it's very possible this storm system will reappear in the models, and be aware that even though there's a drier forecast for next weekend, it could really change back to a much more significant event if the models have continued to do as they've been doing the last few days. So let's take a look and see what we can expect over this next 7-day period. And as you'll see, there is some colder air to our north that's trying to work into the region, but primarily most of it will shift to the east of Nebraska. So for today, we're probably looking at highs in the upper 30s across the northeast, and toward the southwest, closer to the warmer air over the southwestern United States, we'll be looking at highs in the mid-40s. Now, this cold front will sweep through the state during the overnight hours and probably be well to the east of Nebraska by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon. So we'll be looking at highs in the southwest. It'll be easily in the mid-40s and maybe even into the low 50s, depending on how quickly this ridge builds in. For the northeast, we'll probably be looking at the upper 30s, possibly mid-30s, depending on how much cold air hangs around. Now, as we get into Sunday, now we see the ridge building into our region, so this looks to be the best day of the weekend. We'll be looking at highs primarily in the mid to upper 30s across the northeast, might be even low 40s, depending on how quickly this ridge builds in. Across the southwest, definitely mid-40s and possibly even into the low 50s. Now, as we get into Monday, we start to see some of that energy rolling out across Kansas, and that might generate some lighter precipitation, particularly across south central through southeast Nebraska. And as we get into Tuesday, we see that some of this energy hangs back, and that will give us the ability to generate some precipitation from southwest through southeast Nebraska. The farther away you get into northeast Nebraska, the farther away you are from this precipitation shield, so lighter precipitation is expected. We'll see highs primarily in the low to mid-30s across the northeast, to the mid to upper 40s across the southwest. And as we go into Wednesday, now the ridge starts to build in. Colder air just skirts northeastern Nebraska, so we'll be looking at highs in the upper 30s, upper 40s across the southwest. And as we get into Thursday, the ridge starts to build in even closer, so we're going to see a gradual warm-up, low 40s across the northeast, to the low 50s across the southwest. 8 to 14-day forecast indicates below normal temperatures with that trough moving into the western United States. In terms of precipitation, right now we're indicating below normal precipitation, but bear in mind that if this storm reappears, this would probably be a blown forecast, and we could have some real concerns with travel problems if the storm system reemerges in the early part of next week like it has the last few days. So keep an eye on the weather, because it could change rapidly as we move into the early part of next week.